All right, welcome everyone. Glad to have you with us. So, we got some folks on the East Coast who we say good afternoon to. Some folks in the middle of the country, you're sort of stuck in between morning and afternoon. And then those of you on the West Coast, thanks for joining us this morning. As Jim Carrey said in The Truman Show, and good afternoon, good evening, and good night for everybody else who might be in a different time zone. But we certainly do appreciate you joining us today. We're going to give it just another minute to let a few more folks in, and then we will get started with today's webinar, where we're going to be talking about cybersecurity framework adoption for the manufacturing industry sector. Now, before we get started, I do want to let folks know that we are recording this session. So this is, again, one of those times where your microphones are going to be off and your cameras are going to be off, but your names are going to be appearing. And they could be, if you ask a question later on, they could be appearing on the transcript. So if there is anybody who is uncomfortable or unwilling to be part of a recorded webinar, please go ahead and disconnect now. We'll give you a few seconds to do that, and you can simply watch the replay of this once we post it to our YouTube channel. But otherwise, thanks for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, my name is Rick, and I'm with the Project Spectrum team. I'm also with Move America, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But want to welcome you to today's Project Spectrum webinar. Again, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity framework adoption for the manufacturing industry sector, particularly smaller manufacturers. So again, thanks so much for joining us today. This is me. I'm not usually one who likes to put up a picture of myself, especially because you can already see me on the screen, but I do work with this Project Spectrum outreach team. And you got to remember, Project Spectrum is a Department of Defense recognized cybersecurity awareness initiative that provides the tools, training, and resources that businesses need to increase their cybersecurity awareness and maintain compliance in according with DoD contracting requirements. So again, this is me. I am also with Move America. Move America is a nonprofit that is dedicated to strengthening and bolstering the defense industrial base. Move America is also the intermediary for the DoD's Mentor Protege program. And we'll talk about that a little bit later because I want to give you a great opportunity, particularly those companies that are smaller, those companies that are less experienced in federal contracting, especially defense contracting. The Mentor Protege program really does give you a great opportunity to help get yourself into the defense supply chain so that you can start working on those contracts and hopefully eventually become a prime contractor yourself. So again, just a few reminders about this presentation. Your microphone is going to be muted and your camera is going to be off. We want to make sure you check to see how your name is displayed for others to see. If you need to change that, you can go ahead and change that. Now, again, because your microphone is muted and your camera is off, the only way for you to ask questions is to place them into the chat box. So go ahead and do that, put them into the meeting chat. We're going to review and answer those as time permits. We'll have some at the end of the webinar. You can ask during the webinar. We've got other members of the Project Spectrum team that are on the line, and they'll be answering questions as we go along. So feel free to ask those questions as we go along. I will ask, though, please be respectful in the chat box. No self-promotion, no business promotion, no solicitation of any kind, please. And also, please be respectful of other people and their comments. If somebody says something you don't like, simply look the other way. You don't need to comment back. We don't want to have any of that. So today's agenda, again, we're going to talk about Project Spectrum and our mission, which is to educate businesses on the landscape of cybersecurity. Then we're going to talk about the cybersecurity threat landscape. This is something we like to push every single time we do a webinar, and there's a reason, because it's very important. We're going to give an overview of the federal regulations when it comes to federal contract information, or FCI, and controlled unclassified information, which is CUI. Then we're going to talk about the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. That's CMMC. We're going to talk about the level 1 requirements and how you implement cybersecurity in small manufacturing. We're going to talk about level 2 requirements and overcoming those challenges. And then we're going to give you some tips to starting your cybersecurity journey. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about the different resources that are available. You've got Project Spectrum's resources for CMMC level 1 and level 2, and additional Project Spectrum resources. And like I said, we'll also talk a little bit about the Mentor Protege program as well, because that is another important resource as well. So let's start by talking about Project Spectrum. I've been working with Project Spectrum now for a little over 3 years. Actually, it's almost 4 years now. And Project Spectrum is really here to bolster Homeland Defense. Now, there are some people that say, well, that's being a little dramatic. It really isn't, because you have to understand cybersecurity is something that really, truly does threaten our national security. And so that's why the DoD Office of Small Business Programs first initiated Project Spectrum. We put it together as a comprehensive platform that provides the tools and training that businesses and other entities need to increase their cybersecurity awareness and maintain compliance in accordance with DoD contracting requirements. Now, again, a lot of people say, well, is it just for small businesses? No, it's for any size business that wants to do business with the Department of Defense. Is it only for businesses that want to do business with the Department of Defense? No, because cybersecurity is something that can benefit all of us. So whether you're a government agency, whether you're an academic institution, or you're a privately held company or a publicly held company, Project Spectrum has something that can certainly help you with your cybersecurity awareness and help you reach that level of compliance that you need. Now, Project Spectrum also advances those national security priorities that are really, really important, because again, we're strengthening national security by supporting businesses that provide the technology solutions that are going to reestablish deterrence and modernize the defense industrial base, because we are always trying to find ways to do that. We are trying to find better and more innovative ways to support the warfighter and even the efforts that aren't directly tied to the warfighter. Project Spectrum also protects the homeland and our warfighters by providing businesses with the most up-to-date cybersecurity compliance education, tools, and training. Again, all of that is provided at no cost to the user. I do want to stress that, because I can't stress that enough. Project Spectrum does not cost your organization a thing. Our resources, our tools, our training, all of it is provided free of charge to the user, no cost to the user. So now let's start by taking a look at the threat landscape. You got to remember, the Defense Industrial Base, or DIB, is constantly under attack, and small and medium businesses are always on the front line of that attack. 43% of all cyber attacks target small and medium-sized businesses. And why are they targeted? Well, we've got that over on the right-hand side of the screen right now. It's because of their intellectual property. They've got access to that sensitive government information. There's an interconnection with larger defense contractors, especially if they're a subcontractor or a supplier. You've got access to the supply chain, and you've got that political and ideological motivation. We're going to talk a little more about that in just a bit. But again, almost half of cyber attacks are targeting the small and medium-sized businesses because they can, because they are very vulnerable. Only 28% of small and medium-sized businesses have plans to mitigate those attacks. Now, I'm not talking 28% from 43%. I'm talking of the 43%, only 28% of that total have plans to actually mitigate attacks. So you could see, again, very vulnerable. The vulnerability is there. And then you've got what we like to call PEBCAC. The problem exists between chair and keyboard. 74% of breaches are caused by human error. It is a simple fact of life that humans are imperfect beings, and we are going to make mistakes. And sadly, some of those mistakes can be extremely costly, especially when it comes to a cyber attack. the cost of a cyber attack, and this is just the dollar figures. It ranges wildly. Could be a couple $100, could be a couple $100,000, could be even more than that. We're talking the average here is, somewhere between 826 and 653,000. Then you've got the other costs that aren't measured in dollars. You've got your reputation, you've got your downtime, what ends up happening to your labor force. All of that, while you are dealing with a cyber attack, all of that is something that can significantly damage your organization going down the road. And then a lot of us in the small business community think, well, that's no problem. I've got my business insurance. Everything is going to be covered, right? Wrong. Sadly, only 14% of small and medium sized businesses have the proper insurance coverage for cyber attacks because your general business insurance, your property and casualty, none of that is going to matter. That's not going to cover a cyber attack. You need specialized cyber insurance. And in order to get that specialized cybersecurity insurance, you have to meet minimum cybersecurity standards. And that's why Project Spectrum's here to help you get to that level. Now, when it comes to small manufacturers are increasingly targeted by cyber criminals. And this is due to a couple different things here. So you've got your supply chain access points. You need to understand that the threat actors out there are seeing small manufacturers as stepping stones to those larger targets. They can get into the small guy system, then they imagine that they can get into the larger systems of the larger, more experienced contractors. And that is the truth. Also, by compromising one vendor or supplier, they can potentially access an entire network of business relationships, and they can take down the supply chain. Because again, if you can't get one part for a particular system, then it's going to take the entire manufacturing process for that system down. Then you've got the intellectual property value. You got to remember, small manufacturers have intellectual property that is very valuable. It's very valuable to the defense industrial base. It's very valuable to the warfighter, which means it's very valuable to nation states and threat actors, because that significant value on the black market, state-sponsored campaigns, or just taking it out of play. If they could take your intellectual property and completely wipe it out so that it's not going to move forward, that is going to cause a disruption here for our national security and our defense industrial base. Then you've got the fact that smaller manufacturers have limited in-house cybersecurity resources. Show of hands here. How many people on the line today are with a company where everybody wears multiple hats? Your system administrator could also be the person who ends up checking IDs at the door, or could be part of the manufacturing process because they're taking care of those other systems and they have to keep the machine online. So they're not only a system admin, but they're a mechanic. It really is that way with a lot of small businesses. So there's no dedicated security team, which makes it really almost impossible to detect or respond to or even anticipate threats. It really does become a tremendous challenge. So your focus as a small manufacturer is on production. You want to meet your production targets. That makes cybersecurity one of those nice to haves, but it's not a nice to have. It's a must have. So not having the cybersecurity resources that some of the larger, more experienced manufacturers have, that's really going to leave open some doors to vulnerability. One of the other things when it comes to a small manufacturer too, and I remember this from some focus groups that we were running last year, was that smaller manufacturers don't upgrade their systems all that often, because when something works, you don't necessarily want to upgrade it. Again, upgraded system costs money. You're worried about production. Those older computers, and I remember some folks saying, we're still running Windows XP on some of our manufacturing software. Oh my goodness, if Microsoft heard that, they would probably just fall right out of their chairs, because there's literally nothing that is keeping that system from being attacked, especially if it's online. You got to remember it's having those up-to-date resources that are going to help your cybersecurity posture. So remember, there are some very common threats out there when it comes to cybersecurity. They have negative effects on manufacturers, and it just really is getting more and more dangerous every single day because the threat actors are employing new tactics. They're getting smarter, they're getting sneakier, they're getting faster, and it's tough to keep up. I tell people often, cybersecurity is not a destination, it's a journey, and we're going to be on it for a very, very long time. So, what are some of the top threats and unique repercussions for small manufacturers? Well, phishing and social engineering are some. You get a simple email that you know has a link that they shouldn't be clicking, or it looks like it's coming from the CEO. By the way, I need you to log into this system for me. A fake invoice. Those things can trigger a serious breach, and again, that can take down your entire operation. Then you've got ransomware, because again, the threat actors, they're all about money. They're going to disrupt production. They're going to hit you with ransomware. They're going to say, you're going to pay us this much money, or we're not going to give you your data back. And those ransomware attacks don't just lock up your data. They can bring your entire assembly line right to a halt because again, if you can't access your systems, then you can't do what you're supposed to do and you can't produce what you're supposed to produce, and it is going to cause a ripple effect throughout the supply chain. Missed deadlines, lost revenue, all kinds of problems. Supply chain vulnerabilities. Remember, that single weak link in a third party connection exposes the entire operation to risk because we're all interconnected. We are definitely interconnected when it comes to today's technological age. And so we want to make sure that everybody realizes that if you are the weak link in the chain, you're going to cause an issue. Intellectual property theft, as I said before, you've got those critical pieces of intellectual property. We know you have innovation. We want that innovation as part of the defense industrial base. It's what sets you apart from your competitors, but it's what makes you a big target for those threat actors because intellectual property theft, it can cause long-term damage to your reputation, your market position, and again, it could take your intellectual property completely offline. Then you've got operational disruption. Now, beyond the immediate financial impact, we've got lingering disruption, equipment malfunctions, compliance violations, shaken customer trust. Who's going to want to do business with you after you've been attacked and had your entire system taken down? That's something that you really have to stop and think about. And it really is a danger. Pardon me. At least I was able to hit my mute button on that one. But again, it's that disruption. And one other thing to remember, we talk about ransomware. Now there's also extortionware because not only are the threat actors saying that you have to pay to get access to your data, there are some that will take that data and say, and now you have to pay us more money or we're just going to release your intellectual property out for everybody to see. Again, the dangers are real, and we want to make sure that you are protecting yourself as much as possible. So that is where Project Spectrum comes in. That is where the DoD came in because the DoD created the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, several years ago. CMMC now has 3 levels. It used to have 5, and oh my goodness, was it convoluted. Heard that from so many business owners at the time, so many organizations. They had no idea what level they were supposed to be. How am I supposed to reach that level? What is the difference between this level and that level? It really was. They've narrowed it down now to these 3 levels. But as you could see, there are still considerable things to do. When you're a small manufacturer, most small manufacturers are probably only going to need to be CMMC level 1 compliant. That's what's considered as foundational, and it's really about basic data safeguarding for businesses that only handle FCI, Federal Contract Information data. Now, some businesses will move up to level two, particularly as you get more entrenched into the defense supply chain. And CMMC level two is really more advanced. This is where you're enhancing that data safeguarding because you handle CUI, or controlled unclassified information. And again, when it comes to CUI, there are two different types. There's prioritized and non-prioritized data. We're going to talk about that in just a minute because that tends to, again, confuse some folks. A very select number of smaller manufacturers will end up having to go to CMMC level 3, and all of that will be explained in the contract as you're working toward that. But CMMC level 3 really is that expert level. This is for high capacity in safeguarding CUI data that is handled by the highest priority DoD programs, and that includes additional requirements. Again, when you're looking at level 1, you've got 15 requirements. Then when you're looking at level 2, it's up to 110. At level 3, it's 134. So understanding the data that you handle enables you to really identify that level of compliance, because again, it's all about either FCI or CUI. If you only handle FCI data, then you have to have that minimum level 1 compliance with CMMC. If you handle CUI, that's where you have to move up to level 2. And we're going to break that down just a little bit here. So first of all, let's talk about what the difference is between FCI and CUI data. See, FCI data, this is explained in FAR Clause 52.204-21. For those of you who have read the FAR documents, they get a little confusing. So we're going to try to break it down a bit for you. It's sensitive but not classified information. It's provided by or generated for the government under a contract. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see those FCI examples. It's the contract information. It's the organizational charts of the businesses that are part of that contract, or organizational charts of the government agency for that particular contract. It's all of the process documentation. It's all of the contract performance reports, and it's the RFP or RFI responses. Sometimes you get people that say, well, how is that going to help anybody breach any other system? Trust me, they can use it. If they have it, they can use it. They know how to use it. Don't question it. Just understand that it's going to be a problem, and that's why you need to safeguard it. Then you've got the controlled unclassified information. This is under DFARS Clause 252.204-7012. Again, a great read if you're looking for something to, help you get a little drowsy at night. A lot of legalese and a lot of contract language, but we'll break it down for you. See, CUI is a broad category of sensitive information. It's still unclassified, but it requires safeguarding and dissemination of security controls pursuant to federal laws, regulations, and policies. And here we provide you with some examples of CUI. You've got that proprietary business information. This is the stuff you do not want falling in the wrong hands. You've got your unclassified controlled technical information. This is everything from blueprints to plans to algorithms to systems. You've got sensitive but unclassified information. You've got the information that is for official use only. Obviously, with that designation, you want to make sure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And then you've even got law enforcement sensitive, because again, there are some documents where the information is sensitive. It should only be, disseminated to law enforcement agencies, and it could create a huge problem if it were to get into the wrong hands. So again, we break this down a little further. You've got the FCI that includes the sensitive information. It could be related to defense systems. It could be related to technologies or to strategies. Now, unauthorized access to that information, it really could compromise national security, and it could give our adversaries an advantage. And again, when you stop to think about how, the answer is because they can use anything in order to gain an unfair advantage. They practice this day and night. Protecting FCI does help maintain the integrity of government operations. Make sure that the sensitive information that we have doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Now, again, We're talking everything from intellectual property, those trade secrets, financial data related to government contracts. All of that falls under the category of FCI. All of that is stuff that could give somebody else a competitive advantage over the United States. We want to make sure that competitive advantage stays on our side. We want to make sure that competitive edge is with the US companies and prevents economic espionage. I heard somebody the other week say something that I will never forget, and I promised him I would use it. And this is Earl White. He's the executive director of Move America. He said, I, in the military, never want to be part of a fair fight. I always want to be part of an unfair fight, and I want to have every advantage possible. We should have that mindset for every business that's going to be part of the defense supply chain. Lastly, protecting FCI makes sure that we're ensuring fair competition in the bidding process for government contracts. Again, you don't want somebody getting information that is going to give them an unfair advantage and keep your part of that contract from coming true. We don't want companies gaining that unfair advantage. We don't want any unfair advantage happening because of unauthorized access to information. It's like insider trading. You don't want somebody doing insider trading and they're taking all of the money home from the stock market while your stocks are falling because you didn't have the same information. We want that to be a completely level playing field, particularly when it comes to small manufacturers. We want to give you every chance you can have in order to get into the defense supply chain. So again, when it comes to FCI, that's where you have CMMC level 1. 15 basic safeguarding requirements. They come directly from FAR 52.204-21. So here are 5 examples and real-world application tips for small manufacturers. First, you want to make sure you're limiting access to systems and data to unauthorized users, processes, and devices. This is not a free-for-all. It should not be everybody has the same access. It should not be every system has the same access to everything. You want to make sure you maintain that list of approved users. You want to make sure that list is regularly updated. Somebody leaves your organization, their access needs to be revoked immediately. You want to ensure that only those trusted devices and known applications can connect to your network, whether it's a physical network, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's both, hybrid, doesn't matter. Ensure that only the devices you trust and can control can connect to that network. Then you want to use access control mechanisms like login credentials and access groups to make sure that you're enforcing limiting this access. Second, you want to make sure you limit access to specific types of transactions and functions. Again, not every user should have the same access to all of the data and information within your organization. You need to have those user roles, and those roles need to be assigned permissions accordingly. Some people can be able to access, but they should only be able to read versus editing. Then you've got deny by default, allow by exception strategies to restrict access. This is really where you're talking about don't trust anybody unless they prove that they can be trusted. Then it's all about working with your IT support to make sure that you apply those group policies or application permissions accordingly. 3, control and limit your connections to external information systems. We love our external systems, but quite honestly, when you connect to an external system, you shouldn't just open the front door wide open and allow access to everything on your network as well. So you want to make sure that you're requiring VPN access or have a firewall restriction for any type of remote access. Don't allow personal devices to connect to sensitive systems. As much as we would love to have somebody say, well, I just want to be able to access the network from my mobile phone while I'm on vacation, that's a really big problem because your mobile phone is certainly not as secure as some of your other devices could be. So again, you want to make sure that you're setting those policies for cloud usage and blocking unapproved external devices as much as possible or at all times. Then restrict physical access to your systems and workspaces to only authorized individuals. Again, locks, key cards, badge systems for sensitive areas. Physical access is all about where somebody can go and how can they get there. You've got to keep physical access list and update it when staff changes occur. Make sure that everybody's aware when somebody is no longer part of your organization, because again, if they know somebody and they've gotten very used to seeing their face, they're not going to check to see if they have a badge on. They're going to let them in the building. So you want to make sure that they're updated constantly. And install security cameras or require escorts for visitors. Security cameras are really big now. Used to be there was a whole lot to put security cameras in. Now you get them at Best Buy and you can put them in and you can monitor them from anywhere. And trust me, you're going to want to do that. The side door that people sneak out to either get fresh air or not fresh air, depending on what they do when they're outside. That door, if it doesn't have a camera on it so you could see who's coming in and who's going out, that becomes a really big problem. Your loading dock at your facility, especially if you're in a shared facility, nobody watches the loading dock. People come in and out of there all day. And the next thing you know, somebody bad is going to go in. They're going to get access to something they shouldn't get access to, and it's going to cause a problem. Last but not least, identify, report, and correct software and system flaws in a timely manner. Look, again, problems happen. Software constantly needs to be updated. You have no idea how many times I will be on a Teams call and somebody is sharing their screen, and up the top of their web browser, it says, update required. Please restart your browser. And they haven't restarted the browser, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that eventually. That's there for a reason. You need to restart your browser in order to get that update and in order to have the latest security fixes. So you need to set that schedule, whether it's a weekly check for end user machines or monthly for servers. Make sure you're taking a look. Your vendors, they're going to send you alerts when something needs to be updated. Subscribe to security bulletins. They are out there. And again, they're not the most scintillating read, but they're going to give you information that you're going to need. Then, if you do have a vulnerability that's identified, make sure you're keeping records of when it was identified and how and when it was fixed. Those vulnerabilities and you being able to say, yes, we had a problem, but we took care of it. Everything is fine. You have that log, and then it's going to help you in the long run. So when you're talking about implementing cybersecurity in small manufacturing, it's not just a lot of people think, well, it's going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, to, protect my systems. I got to upgrade everything. I got to redo everything. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be complex or expensive. You can start small and stay consistent and simply focus on what matters most. You're safeguarding your assets, you're safeguarding your operations, and you're safeguarding that sensitive data like FCI. You can practically start implementing cybersecurity by following just a couple of steps. First of all, know what you have in terms of your assets. You inventory all of your devices, laptops, desktops, mobile devices, servers, routers, and then keep track of who uses what and where FCI might be stored or transmitted. Knowing what you have is going to be a big part of the, of your strategy. Then control who gets access to your network and your systems. You only give access to employees who need it to do their jobs. They need it to perform their function. It's not about, I want to know, it's about, I need to know. And then anytime somebody changes roles or leaves the company, you've got to go in and either change their access or remove their access, because that again is a problem. And we want to make sure that you're trying to avoid those problems as best as you can. Then you've got a couple more here. Using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. Yes, MFA is a pain. Trust me, every single time I am prompted by Outlook to reinstall my credentials and I got to go back into my Authenticator app, I sit there and I grumble. But I also recognize that if that wasn't the case, somebody could be accessing our systems. It is much better for me to do that and have to do that than to be offline for several days, several weeks, several months because somebody has gotten into the network. So make sure you're keeping on top of that. The hard to guess passwords, unique passwords for all accounts. Don't use the same password everywhere. That's just a bad practice. Got to teach that to everybody. Adding the multi-factor authentication whenever possible. Don't let your password be 12345. Please try to get something a little more complex. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, there are going to be times you're going to sit there and say, I really don't remember that. But it is better to reset your password than to pick something that is so simple that somebody else can figure it out without much challenge. Keeping your systems updated, enabling those automatic updates for your software, your firewalls, your antivirus tools, all of that is going to be big. Assigning someone to check and install updates weekly. That again is somebody's going to have to take on that role, and we want to make sure that you do that. Backing up your critical data. So regularly back up important files to a secure location, whether it's in the cloud or whether it's offline. Testing your backups and not waiting for a crisis to find out that they didn't work. Sometimes that's the only way we find out something isn't the way it should be because it didn't work, but it's better to find out ahead of time before there's an actual problem, maybe just test it, than it is to sit there and wonder, oh, I should have done that a month ago. Make sure you're training your staff. Again, you may have a small staff. It may be you and one other person. It may be less than 5 employees. It may be less than 10, less than 20. No matter what it is, make sure that your staff is trained. Teach them how to spot phishing emails and suspicious links. Remind them, look, I'm not going to ask you to buy me gift cards. I'm not going to send you a text message that is going to say, hey, can you remind me of my password and my username because I completely forgot it. And oh, by the way, this is probably a number you're not used to seeing me text you on. That's okay. It's because I got a new phone. No, none of that's going to happen. Make sure that cybersecurity awareness is always part of your regular training. And then start documenting everything. Short, simple procedures at first. Then keep moving up in the world. Keep adding to it. Document what you do. Who's responsible? That's already progress towards CMMC compliance. All of these are very straightforward. Hopefully they're common sense, but you know what? We need to be reminded of that because these are things that we have to do. And again, show of hands, how many people aren't doing all of this right now? I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm not seeing any hands go up, but whether you want to admit it or not, there are probably some things on this list that you're sitting there thinking we should probably bring that into the forefront. So again, when you're talking about CMMC level 1, the great thing is it's all about annual self-assessments. Now, again, if you're part of the Defense Industrial Base or you want to be part of the Defense Industrial Base, any contractors that handle FCI data, you have to have that annual self-assessment. And to be compliant, all you need is to have all findings result in met or not applicable status. You need to have plans of action and milestones. Sorry. Plans of action and milestones are not permitted at level 1. You don't need that. So you don't have to develop a POAM. Self-assessment results are submitted to the Supplier Performance Risk System, also known as SPRS. And when conducting that self-assessment, CMMC certification is not required or issued. You're not going to get a badge. You're not going to get a certificate. You're not going to get a plaque. You're simply going to know that you have met all of the requirements for CMMC level 1. Now, again, register with Project Spectrum at no cost. You can then conduct your assessment, produce your score, upload it into SPRS. We can help you with all of that, and it doesn't cost you anything. Now, let's go to the other side of the coin. This is CUI, Controlled Unclassified Information. Now, according to DCSA, this is government-created or owned information that requires safeguarding or dissemination controls consistent with applicable laws, regulations, and government-wide policies. Now, CUI is a safeguarding system for unclassified information. Even though it's not considered classified, it's still sensitive, important, and requires protection, but it's not a classification. There is no CUI stamp that you're going to put on something. So something is never going to be classified as CUI. Rather, it's just a type of information that's designated as CUI. Now, there are some designations that fall into the CUI category, like for official use only or sensitive but unclassified designations and markings. And we talked about a few of those other ones earlier, like, law enforcement sensitive. So how do you know if a contract is going to require you to handle and protect CUI? It has to be spelled out in the solicitation. That is going to be part of the RFP or the RFI. That's all going to be in there, or the RFQ even. Again, the federal entity that requests the services determines CUI requirements for both unclassified and classified contracts. And again, it could be in the DD 254, it could be in the request for quote, request for proposal, supporting contract documentation. If you're ever in doubt and you're unsure, simply ask the contracting officer. The contracting officer will be able to explain that and let you know whether or not you have to handle CUI data or not. So if you do have to handle CUI, you need to make sure that you have a controlled environment, and that inside that controlled environment, there's at least one physical barrier to prevent unauthorized access to CUI that's present, such as documents. So again, you need to be aware of potential snoopers, the people that, sort of want to look over your shoulder as you're taking the test. You got to have badge access. Again, making sure that badges are required to get into areas where sensitive information is, and then making sure that not everybody's badge gets them into those areas if they don't need to be there. Storing that information in a locked container, or having administrative personnel overseeing things. All of this is part of that controlled environment. And those controlled environments, whether they're physical or whether they're digital, are there to put up that roadblock, to restrict access to CUI. Only those who need it for legitimate government functions are able to get into it. And you need to guarantee the protection of delicate materials by taking these precautions. So if you're looking at CMMC level 2, let's plan ahead. You don't handle CUI data today, but you're getting through and you're just about ready to have CMMC level 1 down. Preparing for CMMC level 2 now really is a smart move. It's good to work ahead. You want to take that early action to make sure that your business can scale up confidently when those opportunities arise. Because again, if you're already CMMC level 1, or you're about to become CMMC level 1, or you aspire to become CMMC level 1, and you want to keep growing, CMMC level 2 is going to be in your future. More and more DoD contracts are actually requiring level 2. Primes are always looking downstream to ensure that their suppliers can keep up. And a lot of times, there are contracts that say whatever level the prime needs to be, the subcontractors need to be as well. So again, you need to make sure that even though you're only required to meet level 1 today, you're taking that path to level 2 starting right now. So here's what forward-looking businesses are already doing. They're documenting their cybersecurity policies. They're implementing centralized access controls. They're monitoring and logging their activity, and they're preparing for those formal assessments that could come down the road. So when you handle CUI, again, your organization processes, stores, or transmits it. CMMC level 2 is where your bar is set. This level introduces a much more detailed set of requirements. So some of the key areas, again, multi-factor authentication, yes, can be a pain. Yes, is absolutely necessary. Stronger access control, configuration management, incident response planning, logging and user activity monitoring, and secure use of removable media. Removable media. How many times have you come across one of those USB flash drives where you're sitting there saying, gee, I wonder what's on this. I'll plug it in my computer and find out. There are people that want to take advantage of that. So they'll leave those little things laying in the parking lot, just hoping somebody's going to put them into a system somewhere in the building. Now, when it comes to CMMC level 2, there are two ways that you could go when it comes to your assessment. And this split really occurs toward contractors that handle either prioritized or non-prioritized CUI data acquisitions. You need a minimum passing score of 88 out of 110. When you're talking about the non-prioritized or less sensitive CUI data, this is again where you continue with those annual self-assessments that you've been doing with CMMC level 1. You can create a financial savings by using Project Spectrum to access the tools, training, and cyber advisory preparedness services that you need in order to get to CMMC level 2. Again, certification is not required. It's not issued. You don't get a badge or certificate, a plaque, anything. You simply meet that score and then you upload it to the SPURS system. Now, when you're handling prioritized or sensitive CUI data acquisitions, this is where you have to step things up. This is where you need an every 3-year you need an assessment every 3 years, and it needs to be performed by a certified third-party assessor, or C3PAO. I always have hated that acronym because part of me wants to say a robot from Star Wars, and the other part of me just wants to jumble those letters and numbers up. But again, you can create a financial savings by first using Project Spectrum for our assessment tools, our training, our cyber advisory preparedness services. We, however, are not a certified third-party assessor. You have to get that assessment through that C3PAO, and then that must be submitted to the CMMC Enterprise Mission Assurance Support Services, or EMAS system. So when you're talking about the requirements for CMMC level 2, you could take a look at the National Archives Record Administration organizational index groupings. If the CUI data that your company handles falls into the following category data types, your company needs to have that certified third-party assessment: controlled technical information, DoD critical infrastructure security information, naval nuclear propulsion information, privileged safety information, and unclassified controlled nuclear information for defense. Again, those are the categories for CUI where it is prioritized, and that's where you're going to need the certified third-party assessments. So when you're talking about overcoming challenges, small manufacturers, we get it. You face day-to-day roadblocks when you're trying to strengthen cybersecurity because you're balancing so many different things. You don't have the in-house expertise. You have legacy systems. You've got tight production schedules and you need to focus on production. We get it. We understand. There are practical and attainable ways to move forward, and we're going to go over these fairly quickly because I'm noticing that we're slowly but surely running out of time. First is to outsource to trusted IT partners. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. You can partner with a managed service provider or a local consultant who specializes in supporting manufacturers. Even a part-time resource or a contract resource can help you monitor your systems, set up your backups, and then close the biggest gaps. Remember, it's always okay to say, I need help, and to go out and get that help, and you don't have to do it by getting something astronomically expensive. Start small, work your way up. You can engage your local manufacturing extension partnership. Project Spectrum and the MEPs have had a long relationship. We supported several MEPs on the state level years ago, and I believe that continues to this day, but it's really all about the national network, the NIST MEP National Network. That's here to assist small businesses in understanding the DFARS and NIST SP 800-171 cybersecurity compliance requirements. MEP centers do offer hands-on support. They can provide cybersecurity assessments. They can help you make the connections to vetted providers, all tailored to small and medium-sized manufacturers. Best of all, they truly do understand the manufacturing environment. So here's a website that you can go visit. That's nist.gov/MEP. You can apply for government cybersecurity grants. Remember, there are resources out there. There is grant money that is available to help you, whether it's on the federal level or the state level. You can get that money that can help manufacturers like you improve your cybersecurity. Now, some of those grants cover things like assessments, training, and implementation help. The MEP or your local economic development office can certainly help you apply, so be sure to look into any type of grant assistance. Prioritize cybersecurity alongside safety and quality. Remember, you don't want somebody, losing a body part in your machinery. You also don't want your network to lose anything. So really look at it the same way. Treat it the same way as you would treat any type of safety and quality check that is going to protect your business. If you put it into the frame of mind as yet another operational risk to manage and build it into your culture through regular checklists, training, accountability, that can all go a very long way, even without a big budget. So we've got some more quick wins to begin your cybersecurity journey. These are practical, high impact actions that can significantly improve your organization's security posture. And most can be started with, again, minimal cost, minimal disruption. So creating a device and user inventory. Again, you want to just make sure that you're creating that, you're getting yourself in that mindset of understanding what you have, what you need to have, who's assigned to it, all of that. Laptops, desktops, servers, USBs, every user account, and what level those accounts should be. The person who handles payroll should be the one who handles the financial system. The person who handles production doesn't necessarily need to handle the financial system, and vice versa. So it's all about taking that foundational step toward controlling access and then managing your risk. If you don't know what you have, you obviously can't protect it. Enforcing those strong password policies. Again, requiring those long and unique passwords, yes, they're a pain to remember, but they are certainly worth it. And make sure you're not allowing people to reuse passwords, because again, that's just giving someone ample opportunity to steal all of your data and take down your systems. If you use a password manager and enable account lockouts after repeated failed login attempts, all of that is going to make sure that you're going to be able to handle that information well. Pardon me while I minimize that. Make sure that you're backing up your data securely. Scheduling those regular backups of critical files and systems, storing backups offline or in a secure, separate environment, testing your ability to recover from them. Ransomware really does lose its power when you can restore things fairly quickly. So make sure that you're doing that, and you should be in good shape. Limit those administrative privileges. You only give users the access that they need to do their jobs, nothing more. Make sure you're reserving admin rights for only specific individuals. Use separate accounts for daily work versus administrative tasks. Providing ongoing staff training and running phishing simulations. We do this here at Project Spectrum, where we have a test that goes out and it's a phishing email. And if somebody clicks on a link they're not supposed to, it says, this was a phishing test. Sadly, you didn't pass. And then it gives them resources to learn more about how they can end up not falling for that in the future. Remember, it's all human error, and we're imperfect beings, so we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves the best chance to get through it. Pardon me as I clear my throat. Again, we have online courses related to FCI data. Project Spectrum offers a series of courses on CMMC Level 1 that can help you when you're protecting FCI. You could see all the Level 1 courses related to FCI over here on the side of the screen. When it comes to controlled unclassified information, CUI for CMMC Level 2, we have a class that is specific for contractors that handle CUI. This course is going to help you with a definition of CUI, the history and importance of CUI, how to identify and utilize those CUI markings, and how to handle CUI. So again, we have that. All of our courses, again, are free to you, no cost to the user. Want to make sure you take advantage of that resource. Now, Project Spectrum, along with those courses, also offers plenty of other resources, and we always like to make sure that you understand all of these resources are at no cost to you. We have artifacts, assessment tools, and advisory services, everything from security system plan templates to POAM templates. We've got one-on-one cyber advisory services. I have to tell you, our cyber advisors are top-notch. I always highly, highly, highly recommend that people utilize them. We've got a cyber readiness dashboard. We've got your SPURS score generation and uploads. We can help you with your remediation plan template. All of that can be done with Project Spectrum services. Now, remind you, we don't do these things for you. We're not going to write your SSP for you. We're not going to write your POEM for you, but these services are available. Then we've got education and information, training and education, blogs, news items, Project Spectrum briefings like this one. So be sure you stay in touch with us because we're going to make sure that we get you into all of those and give you access to everything that we have. So here is where we are going to take a moment and we're going to talk about some of the questions. I believe we've been answering questions as we've gone along, but we have a question from Mike. Is there any value in organizations seeking CMMC level 1, even if they don't have direct relationships with the government and known FCI? The answer is absolutely. CMMC level 1, again, is that foundational level of cybersecurity compliance. It's not just about defense. It's not just about the contract. It's not just about being a subcontractor. It's about having that level of cybersecurity compliance and awareness that is going to help you to protect your systems, your data, your devices, and your people, and your business operations. So it is imperative for you to get CMMC level 1, whether you are part of the defense supply chain or not. A question from Andy: how do we stay in the split A side of CUI? Again, it all depends on the data that you're going to be handling. As you're getting into those prioritized, the highly sensitive federal systems, as you get into those contracts, that's where you start getting into the bifurcation on side B. And so again, we want to make sure that you understand that it is, it is going to be determined by the type of data that you handle. All of that's going to be determined by the contract. So if you're reading the contract and it says that you need level 2 and that you're going to need level 2 with, the triennial assessment or the certified third-party assessor, that would be a contract that you would not want to bid on. Another question: what is the price range for third-party assessment? Sadly, that's not something I can answer because they do range wildly. I've heard some manufacturers tell me that it's a couple $1,000s. I've heard some say that it's 10,000 or more. It really depends on who you're utilizing as a third-party assessor, what their costs are. So again, that's not something that's an easy answer. How do we get access to the no-cost resources? Register with Project Spectrum. Yes, register with Project Spectrum. Absolutely free. You go to our website, you sign up for your account, and everything that we have is then available to you at no cost. All right. With that, I do want to take a quick moment. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to introduce Mr. Kareem Sykes. And Kareem, I am so sorry I didn't introduce you before, but Kareem is here to talk to you a little bit more about Project Spectrum. So Kareem, I want to toss it to you for just a quick few moments to let everybody know about all the great stuff that you're doing at Project Spectrum.
Absolutely, and thank you, Rick, for a fantastic webinar. I think that deserves at minimum a virtual round of applause. Hopefully we'll get some clapping hands icons in the chat there, but very, very good questions. Again, I want to take a moment to, just to thank you all for joining us today for this important conversation, right? We're talking about cybersecurity framework adoption in the small manufacturing sector. And listen, there couldn't be a more, appropriate topic, frankly, in the environment that we find ourselves today from a cybersecurity perspective. When we think about the particular threat vectors aimed at small and medium-sized manufacturers, particularly the micro smalls, it's just incredibly important that we highlight the disproportionate attacks that are happening specifically toward that a segment, if you will, within the small manufacturing sector. And so, again, we hope you found the insights and guidance shared today as valuable, and that you continue to work to strengthen your organization's cybersecurity posture with the assistance of the myriad resources that avail themselves through projectspectrum.io. And before we close, I want to just highlight what an invaluable resource Project Spectrum is. Again, designed specifically to target the small and medium-sized manufacturers and small businesses within the defense industrial base and beyond, frankly, right? No cost tools, training, guidance. Rick nailed it home. Again, all tailored to your cybersecurity needs. So whether you're just getting started, whether you're looking to mature your cybersecurity program, and for that matter, infrastructure and environment, Project Spectrum is here to help you at every step of the way. And so again, we appreciate both your time and participation today. Please stay safe, secure, and again, keep building cyber resilience in your operations. Thank you.
Thank you much, Kareem. And with that, I'm going to end it by saying we want to make sure that you stay connected with Project Spectrum. You can do so on our website, projectspectrum.io. When you're on that website, you'll notice down in the bottom of the screen, there's a little thing that looks like a question mark. That is where you can reach our Project Spectrum team anytime. So be sure to utilize that to reach out to us if you should need anything. You can also reach out to us. It's funny to say email is the old-fashioned way, but it really is. But you can email us at support@projectspectrum.io. Again, that goes to our team, and we'll make sure that we help you with whatever it is you need. Training webinars such as this one, we hold them monthly, so be sure to tune in and find out when the next one is going to be. And then last but not least, make sure you're keeping up with us on social media. We're on YouTube and we are on LinkedIn, and we are always putting new information out there. So again, want to make sure that you keep connected with us. So with that said, on behalf of the entire Project Spectrum team, I want to say thank you. One thing we did not get to cover today, and I'm sorry we're just a minute or two over today, but hopefully you're still hanging in there. We didn't get to talk much about the Mentor Protege program. Hopefully that's something we're going to talk a little more in depth about. But I will say this, as a representative of Move America, who is the intermediary for the Mentor Protege program, we help with the agreements, we help with the reporting, we help once those protege companies, the less experienced companies, find a mentor and want to get into the program, we help that happen. If you want to learn more about the MPP program, you can do so on the OSBP website. They do have a page on the Mentor Protege program, or you can reach out to me. Real easy email for you is communications@moveamerica.org. That's communications@moveamerica.org. That will reach my inbox, and then I will make sure that I'm getting you the help to find out more about the Mentor Protege program. So again, on behalf of the Project Spectrum team, everybody else, and anybody who's been involved in putting this webinar together, special shout out to Mark Chisholm for all the fantastic work he always does, and the cyber advisors, Richard Rowe, Kareem Sykes, everybody on the Project Spectrum side. Thanks again for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. My name is Rick with the Project Spectrum Outreach team, and I wish you the best of success on your cybersecurity compliance journey. Have yourself a great day.